quoting here directly, anyone who knows me knows what the city means to me. That was Sidney Crosby yesterday in Sewickley, participating in the team's annual delivery of season tickets right to people's homes. And doesn't that quote just ping bar down? Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I'd love to be able to share with you a sentiment that Sid quashed once and for all, this scarcely worth discussing notion that he'd want to be traded from the Penguins, that he'd want to end his career or complete his full career anywhere other than Pittsburgh. But then in meeting with reporters after the delivery, like right out on their front lawn, he spoke the following on this subject.
There's a lot of narratives out there, and I don't think a lot of those have come from me. So, this is where I want to be. I love it here, and I can't keep having to answer the same question over again because of these narratives. If people want to write about that or say that, that's fine. But I can't really control that. Obviously, when you lose and when there's certain things that happen, I think it's normal for that stuff to come up. But that's how I feel.
Plucking from out of that, again, I quote, "This is where I want to be. I love it here," end quote. If you choose to try to twist that, if you choose to parse it, if you choose to try to, let's just say, for example, get some clicks or video views or audio downloads out of it, then you're only making his first point for him. And I'll repeat that one. Anyone who knows me knows what the city means to me. Dear the rest of North America, you don't know Sid. They can lay rightful claim to him in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and other parts of that province. They can lay rightful claim to him once every 4 years across the scope of Canada. But if you're not understanding how deeply ingrained he is in Pittsburgh, with Pittsburghers, not for show, not to try to win accolades, not to impress anybody, but because it's who he is. He's been in Pittsburgh for a bigger share of his life than he's been anywhere else. He's had the overwhelming majority of the biggest events in his life right here. I've not heard him say this, but I don't doubt for a split second that wherever he happens to go in his post-hockey career, he'll be anchored right here. If you have not seen, heard, or read the countless stories of how he conducted himself, how he carried the Stanley Cup from private business to private business, meeting with some of them after hours so that they could touch the trophy, so that they could participate in it, so they could feel like they were part of it. You know, the dude with the white mop head and the gloves? He wore that dude down. And it wasn't just to go party, and it wasn't just for formally arranged parties. If you ever get a chance, look up the story of what he did for the people who work at the grocery store where he regularly shops. And, by the way, doesn't get bothered by them. He's just a customer. Go look at what he did for them. But more than that, I would say to you that Sid's not exactly the type to be comfortable being a villain, except that he was really, really, really comfortable, and I'm sure will continue to be, being that person in Philadelphia and a couple other places as well. Where he could never handle it is Pittsburgh. What he would never be able to absorb is, after putting this much of himself, of his personal life, of his hockey career into one place, into one city, that he could then go and say things out loud like he did yesterday, and then, I don't know, a year from now, say, I got to get out of here. I got to be me. I got to go win somewhere. He can't do that. He can't do that. Look, I'm not going to be one of those people who claims to know him like I'm name dropping or playing important, but I've covered him for a long time. I've followed him all over the world. We've had countless conversations on the record, off the record, through text, over the phone, and I'll never be more convinced of anything in covering him than that he's a single sweater guy, and more specifically, that he's a Pittsburgher. I don't think nearly as much of his agent, never have, don't ever expect to. But out of respect for Sid, I'm not going to take that too far here. Pat Brisson has a habit of just blurting stuff. He's one of those agents who loves to talk and loves to be heard. But you want to know something? Marc-Andre Fleury has one of those too in Alan Walsh, and I've never held that against Flower. Agents are agents, players are players. What the agent thinks in almost every setting doesn't matter. They're working for the player. Do you really think that the agent, the responsible, diligent agent for Sidney Crosby would say, hey, Sid, I got you a really good deal for $8.7 million because it's your favorite number? No, of course not. That's because Brisson doesn't mean anything. He's someone who works for Sid. He's someone who takes care of things that Sid needs to have taken care of. Does Sid want to win? Does Sid want to be in the playoffs? And all that other stuff that Brisson was talking about as if he was breaking some kind of news? Of course he does. He's Sid. It's all he wants to do is win. Is there a significant portion of Sid that wouldn't be crazy necessarily about some of the moves that have been made over the past couple of years or the lack of moves this past summer? I'll bet there is, because that's the competitor in him, because he wants to win. But taking that and taking this agent's irrelevant remarks, I mean, Sid himself said yesterday he doesn't even remember talking to Brisson about this subject, and turning that into him wanting a trade, it's got to end. And that's what you heard from him above and beyond anything else. He's tired of being asked about it. He's tired of answering it as if he's done something wrong or as if he's the one who brought it up. He just wants to play hockey, and he wants to play it in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When we come back, J1Q. Hey guys, if you're planning to see a concert or a Penguins game, once the NHL season starts, use the Game Time app to get your tickets. You can snag new ticket deals before anyone if you set it into app alerts. The app is easy to use. No surprise fees at checkout. You can see your seat view before buying, and you're getting legit tickets delivered on time. If you're not much of a planner, you can get last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of an event. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app and enter the code DK Penguins in your app profile for $20 off your first purchase. Today's J1Q comes from James, who says, DK, longtime Penguins fan, longtime listener and reader. I've heard your rave reviews of Harrison Brunick and to a lesser extent Sergei Murashov. I've heard and read your reporting on Rutger McGroarty and Owen Pickering, but I also reserve the right to my own thoughts. In my opinion, the success of this coming season hinges and is perhaps symbiotic with the success or not of Ville Koivunen. If Koivunen bursts onto the scene the way that I think he might, I reserve the right to say that for this team, the sky is the limit. We'll see, but in my book, his potential is that impressive. I'm not going to be one to douse any hope that anybody would have for any young player. At least I try to avoid it. In Koivunen's case, I do think a lot of him, as I've shared. I've never painted or portrayed him as some elite prospect, as some superstar in waiting. And I hope anything that I've said about him would be taken into that context, because he's not that. Those guys, they never see more than one development camp anything. They're 18, they lace them up, and off you go. But I do appreciate a point that you made about looking at the coming season from the prism of how Koivunen does. Another regular contributor to our hockey community on the DK Pittsburgh Sports app, wrote that if Koivunen, McGroarty, Tristan Bros, and say one more youngster became real live contributors this coming season, and again, we're not raising that contributor bar to some crazy level. I just mean that they would legitimately squeeze veterans off the line charts on merit, not because they're younger and cuddlier. Can probably throw Philip Hollander into that as well. Brunick, if he makes it. Because you would have in that event the franchise taking a stride forward. In addition to just, the team not being that old. Now, on that note, it shouldn't get lost in the day's Sidney Crosby news and remarks that the Penguins won that 5-team prospects challenge up in Buffalo for a third consecutive year. Here again, I'm not going to oversell that or overstate it, but it is actual competitive hockey. It is going against other teams, so you're not as worried about whether or not you hit and bruise them or outright hurt them. And what probably stood out the most out of these results is that the guys you wanted to see carry this team did, in fact, do that for the most part. Bros scored 2 more goals yesterday for 3 in the 3 games that they played. He also was on the power play, the penalty kill. He was physical. He was vocal, visible. Avery Hayes, who our beat writer Taylor Haas at DK Pittsburgh Sports said in advance was going to be the one who stood out in this tournament, ended up having a goal in all 3 of the games. His 4th goal coming in the game yesterday. He led the Penguins in this tournament in scoring for a 2nd consecutive year. Ben Kindle, your first-round draft pick, not only had 2 goals yesterday, but he's impressed management, according to Taylor's reporting, with better-than-expected skating, and that's in large part because all he needed to do, and they did get this correct, was strengthen those legs and that core and get more power from down below. Murashov stopped 45 out of 48 shots, including the win that he put together yesterday. I don't just encourage you to read Taylor's one-of-a-kind reporting on the DK Pittsburgh Sports app. I outright urge you to do that. If you aren't, I'll just say this, you're missing a lot. And it's stuff that she doesn't miss. If you're interested in that app, go ahead and download it for free onto your Apple or Android device. And after you do that, email me directly, not some company or automated thing, at dk@dkpittsburghsports.com. Spell all of that out. Tell me that you've done it and tell me that you're interested in the discount that I'm offering, which is a massive discount that you won't be able to say no to, that'll give you access to the premium level of our app that includes all of Taylor's reporting, the ability to ask her questions, our live files. We cover the Penguins everywhere they go, every game, every practice, everything. There's nothing like this app for a Pittsburgh hockey fan. Appreciate you guys. Let's do it again tomorrow.